Let's look at display. So in HTML 101 and HTML 201, we learned about different block types. And so in H1, this is a block element, and a span, this is an inline element with more text beside it. And if we do with more text beside it, we're going to see something very interesting. So when I load up my page here, this is a block element. This is H1, and you can see it's taking up all this extra space over here. It's a block element. It's selfish. It wants to use as much possible space, even if it doesn't need it. And you can tell that it's a block element because even though this is a block element and we wrote with more text beside it, it kicked it down into its own line. Whereas a span is an inline element, and it said, you know what, I'm only going to take up the amount of space that I actually need. And yes, other elements and other text can live beside me. I'm totally cool with that because I'm not selfish. But block elements are kind of selfish and they take up all the space that they possibly can. Now with CSS, we can overwrite this. And this is really important because you're going to see one element over and over and over again, and that's the div. The div element, this is a block element. The div element is a block element. It's going to be selfish. It's going to take up as much space as it possibly can. And so let's say we have these two block elements and we want these to be side by side. We can do this. We can overwrite this now with CSS. We can say, select both divs on the page, and we can say display, and its default behavior is block. But we could say display inline. Let's also give this a border, 1 pixel solid red, so both of them have a border, and we can see where we're working. In fact, actually, let's back that up just one sec. Let's change this. Let's comment this out. These are block elements. It's taking up all the space that they possibly can from left to right. Let's change the display type to inline, go back to our page and hit refresh, and they work side by side. Now, why this is important? Well, there are probably 1,000 different use cases, but the most popular use case that you're going to see is div. Divs are block elements, but they're also dummy elements. They don't actually mean anything. So you're going to be overwriting display block from a div to display inline or inline block. Now here's the difference between inline and inline block. Okay, this is a very important thing to distinguish. Is on our div here, if we said the width was supposed to be 200 pixels each and the height was supposed to be 200 pixels each. And actually, this is really cool. I didn't know that VS Code does this, but this tells me here that the property is ignored due to the display. With display inline, the width, height, margin top, margin bottom, and float properties have no effect. So now we're getting into internal rules of CSS. So when we go back to our page, it has absolutely no effect. Now, to get around this, we simply say display inline block. And when I refresh the page, we can see that they turn into proper squares. So what I would like you to do is fiddle with this because this is vital for working with CSS. I want you to create two divs and then I want you to make them side by side. Use display inline and then inline block and set a width and a height on both of them. Make sure that they can be side by side and that they are two squares, just like I did in this video. Give that a shot. Once you're done, let's head on over to that next lesson.